Now, when you tell somebody you're going to sharpen an image, what that means in everybody's mind is that you're going to make it a little more in focus. You're going to create more detail in the image than possibly the camera actually collected. But what is sharpening from a technical standpoint? Well, sharpening, explained technically, is nothing more than an increase in contrast between adjoining pixels. And that's it. It's an increase in contrast between adjoining pixels, and that's all that it is. And there's a number of ways to achieve that result, and the increase in the contrast between those adjoining pixels results in the optical illusion of the image being more in focus. So let's take a close look at Laura here, and we'll go full focus over here and come in close on her eye. And the eye is a great place to do these kinds of lessons because of the incredible complexity of the image right there. And you can see what's going on with the pixels a lot easier. So we're going to go ahead and zoom in at pixel level. Going to get right down in there. And just going to make a note of what we see. Now here we have, pixels, and it's a high resolution image, so there's a lot of variation. Now let's add some sharpening. We go Filter. And the best way to do sharpening, quite honestly, is with the unsharp mask. Now, I know it's got a weird name, but just trust me, that's the best way to do sharpening, generally speaking. It's a run-of-the-mill, one-size-fits-all place to do sharpening. All right, so you'll do 99% of your sharpening, in other words, in this dialog box. So unsharp mask, and we have a number of sliders here. Now, it's worth taking a look at what these sliders are, what they do, and how they work. Now, the amount, I think is pretty obvious, is how much contrast between adjoining pixels. The radius describes how far distant we go. In other words, 1 pixel? Or do we want to look at the average contrast between 2 adjoining pixels? Or do we want the contrast between 3 adjoining pixels, and so on? In other words, for every 3 pixels, we adjust the contrast amongst those pixels. The threshold is a little more difficult to describe, and to be completely candid with you, I'm not sure I fully understand what the threshold actually does, technically how it works. The way I understand it is that it dictates how far out we go before we start looking at the contrast between adjoining pixels. And I know that's weird. I know that's probably not making it clear for you. But the way it works and the way you use it is following. If you have noise in your image, adjust the threshold up to about, say no more than 4 or 5, and then run your radius up to about 2, where you would normally have it at 1. If you would normally have it at 2, run it up to 3, and so on. So it will avoid grabbing the noise and sharpening it, which you don't want, but it still grabs portions of the image that it needs to increase the contrast between adjoining pixels every 4th pixel. And I know this is clear as mud. I understand that it is. All right, let's just go through some examples, and that'll become a lot clearer to you. All right, we're going to go 100%. Now, did you see that? Now, on these pixels, now watch. Before and after, especially right in here where we have a big bright area intersecting with a big dark area. Okay, once again, there we go. Now let's go down to a radius of 1, and we'll go up to 200% before and after. Now let's go back to 0. See, some of those pixels that were a little more pastel in color suddenly came to life. Let's do it again. Here's 4. Here's 0. And that's the best way to demonstrate threshold. Trust me. I've been down this road so many times. So the larger the radius, see that? That's just gross. That's way, way overkill. That's not what you want. On a high resolution image like this one is, it's a 16-bit, about 21 megs. Out of a 5D Mark II. So it's a very high resolution, high detailed image, very, very much in focus. That's what sharpening is. Now let's look at the different ways to do it, how much is too much and how much is not enough, etc., etc. in the next movie in Photoshop CS6.